All right, folks, I'm back in the man cave. There we go. So I'm back in the man cave, and, one of the... Sorry, I just sneezed earlier, so I'm just trying to get over that. I'm still a little sick, so, yeah. Someone asked the question, and we get this question often, will we stay in Tacoma forever? And the answer to that is no. I don't think that we will stay here forever. I think we're going to stay here for the foreseeable future. But as far as like forever, no. And there's many reasons for that. One of the reasons why we're staying here, well, let me back up a little bit. If you follow our Patreon, it kind of spells out a little bit as to what my hopes are. Now, I've expressed Hawaii, which is not one of those, but I expressed Hawaii would be a great place to, move to, but that's not going to happen. Let's just be real. But there are other places that I've also talked about that are pretty much on that dream list. And there's been a new location that's been on our dream list as well. Those are possibilities. But realistically, I don't know if that's going to actually happen. I mean, the reason why I say that is because we are staying in Tacoma for as long as we are for the kids. I wanted our kids to go to a very diverse school. And when you're counting this area, like the Puget Sound region, you can't get more diverse than Tacoma. So, I would say in the next 10 to 15 years, in 10 years, Zoe will be 18 years old. It's insane. Zara will be 16. In 15 years, Zeta will be 18. So, I would say in 15 years would probably be when we would end up leaving, right? And I want them to get through school because, if we were to leave in 10 years, which would be totally fine, then that means that Zara and Zeta would kind of be out. They would be leaving school in the middle of their time, and they have all their friends and all that stuff. So, I know that's important, and I don't want to interrupt in that. So, we'll stick around probably for 15 years and then call it quits. Spruce the house up, sell it for a lot more than what we paid for it, and then Noelle and I are just going to be gone. So we've already made plans for that. The reason why I don't want to stay in Tacoma forever is because of the fact that the city of Tacoma is growing pretty fast. Seattle, the quality of life in Seattle has took a dip. Now, I don't think it's going to stay that way. Well, it could if, leadership doesn't step up and do the things that they need to do. But Seattle has taken a dip in its quality of life. And I don't think it's ever going to go back to what it used to be, obviously, right? So many people have moved there. Traffic's a nightmare. There's a lot of other things that are just a problem and a concern. The city has a lot of great things, obviously, but the quality of life, and I've said this before, is what's hurting it. If you're a millennial, you can't really afford to live there. If you're not making really, really, really good money, you're not going to really enjoy it there as much as what you probably could have. Some people can, but most people won't. Families do better outside of Seattle, I think, because Seattle has just been built recently in the last few years as a single person, or just if you're a couple without kids, it seems like that's the type of city that it is. Tacoma in the next 10 to 15 years is going to almost double in size. So right now we're at about 210,000 people, let's say. And I think they said in 10 to 15 years, the population here will be about 320 to 330,000 people. That's currently the size of St. Louis, I believe. So the city itself is growing very, very fast, and you can see it now. When you go downtown, you can definitely see how the city is changing and just morphing. So we want to leave, or I want to leave, before the city gets to the point of being too crowded and too big for us. Now, I know that sounds silly because back in the day when I was younger, I wanted to be right in the middle of New York City. Well, after you get older, it's kind of like, Not so much. You know, in 15 years, we're still going to be young. Noelle will be just 51. I'll be 56. So it's not that big of a deal. I probably would stay in Washington State. If the other two places, the dream places that I want to go, if those don't pan out, then we'll probably be in Washington State, and probably someplace that is in the middle of nowhere where the town is about the size of my street and there's a ton of land. That's probably what's going to happen more realistically. Doubtful that I'll move back to my hometown. Doubtful that we'll move back to Indiana or any of those other places. Probably Washington State will be it if those other two locations in the world are not going to pan out. Tacoma has a lot of great things going for it, but there's a lot of things too that you know, the docu-series that talks about Seattle is really on point, right? It talks about, and if you really go beyond that, if you look at some of the history of Seattle and you go back to when the city was, you know, coming into its own, and at one point Tacoma was the crown city of Washington, and then, you know, basically later on Seattle became the crown city. But when you go back and you look at the history of Seattle and kind of the way the city developed and how it changed, every generation changed so drastically, right? And now I think we're at that point of where it's basically a city of very wealthy. You know, Bellevue is another city like that too. You have to be pretty wealthy in order to live there. If not, and you know, some people may disagree, and that's fine, but I'm talking just in general, right? In general, it becomes kind of difficult. You know, I've talked about how, you know, getting a house there wouldn't be a problem for us, but the quality of life would start to suffer. We wouldn't be able to take, we don't take a lot of vacations anyway, but we wouldn't be able to take as many vacations. We wouldn't be able to go and, you know, do a lot of the activities that we do if we were to live up there, just because a lot of that money would have to go towards living. Down here, you have a lot more flexibility, at least in our case. We have a lot more flexibility. So for us, it's looking at it at the standpoint that I think that Tacoma is going to go the same direction of Seattle in many respects. You know, really and truly, a lot of the cities here look to Seattle as a model, and I would even say that goes down to Portland to a degree. Portland even looks to Seattle as kind of the model, because it's been so successful. You know, when you look at Seattle, it's been very, very successful in terms of just growth and what it's doing and that type of thing. There are a lot of growing pains, and those growing pains are big and they're major. So Tacoma, I think, is probably not far from that. I don't think it will be as bad here. The traffic's not going to be as bad as what you see up in Seattle. The clustering is not going to be as bad. You're not going to have as many, the same type of situations that you have up in Seattle in the next 10 to 15 years, I don't think. But there comes a point where we have to say, you know what, let's go on to the next thing. And once the girls are done in high school, you know, that's it. Like, you know, you guys go to college, you go do wherever you want to go to college, that's fine. But at that point, you know, they're grown adults, you know, so we can do our own thing, take our cruises that we've been wanting to take. Noelle's never been on a cruise before, so I told her, I said, it's amazing. So anyway, but that's kind of what our plan is to basically just kind of move away from here. A lot of the things too, the direction, hold on one second. All right, I'm back. I had to blow my nose. But a lot of this too has to do with Noelle and I having a conversation just, yesterday or the day before about the future. And I think probably for us, early retirement is going to be something that is going to happen. Because for one, we don't want to work forever. And for two, I think that just in general, at that point would kind of tired. Right now, we still enjoy, obviously, the city. We have a lot of things that we love to do around here. But as far as like the future goes, I would say definitely 10 to 15 years will be more than done in terms of this general, in Tacoma, especially. And I would say probably we're talking, when I say it's still living in the area, I'm still talking a pretty good distance. And we're talking a smaller town, much smaller city. No, or, you know, there's other options that we've talked about too. But Noelle and I are more quiet people now. We used to be back in the day. We used to be out doing stuff, being crazy. You know, you saw the video of us during her birthday. We were actually at Seven Seas Brewery downtown Tacoma. And that was kind of what we used to do all the time. Is go hang out, do stuff like that. It was literally every week we would be out. That's changed, obviously, with kids, and we now go out maybe twice a year. You know, we go out twice a year, maybe by ourselves, just her and I. And then when we count the kids, going out to places like that, maybe 6 times a year, just because the kids are so crazy. So we just don't go out and do stuff like that. Unless there's people that, you know, come and visit us or something like that. But nowadays, we're just kind of, as we get older, we just wind down a whole lot more. And one day, we just, and the reason why we started talking about the future was for many reasons, but one in particular, we were just, we had the window open because it's getting warm. And we just heard car after car after car after car after car going down our road here. And she's like, gee, the traffic is so bad. And I said, yeah. Like, I mean, the traffic here in Tacoma has gotten worse since we've been here. And that's just not an exaggeration. You could see it grow. And that's what I said about Seattle. You could see the street. You could see the traffic grow. Literally. Here it's the same thing. You're seeing more and more traffic, more and more people. So after a while, it's kind of like, I'm done with that. So I'd say good 15 years, we're good. Now, what does that mean for the region in terms of house prices? I think that here, prices for homes are going to go up every single year, obviously, for a long time. I don't think you're ever going to see prices go down. And the reason why, and people say, well, Amazon. I don't think that's necessarily true. Amazon can go away tomorrow, and I think you're still going to see home prices go up. Why? The area is the quality of life. A lot of people will talk about how beautiful it is here, and not just in Seattle. I mean, you can go to the San Juans, or you can go, you know, over to the far east side, or you can go down south or far north. And it's just a beautiful area. So a lot of people are attracted to the area for that. I mean, if you look at a lot of people who moved to California and along the shoreline of California, it was due to mainly because of the beauty, you know? And I think that's the case here. So because of that, I think that you're going to always have people who flock to this area. There's a lot of jobs. I mean, right now, there's so many companies that are hiring. We just don't have enough people to fill them. And I don't see that ever really changing. And so, yeah. And then when you look at it, let's talk about Amazon. Amazon is growing at, they got like 50-something thousand people that they have employed in Seattle. In Bellevue, they're going to have about 25,000. Who knows what the future is going to, and that's kind of what they've penciled in. Who knows what that final number is going to be, and who knows where else they're going to actually grow. So given that, I mean, that company, that one company, 75,000 jobs. You know, like that's 75,000 different families. Not just them, but Facebook's expanding here, Google, all of them. So to me, I don't see this changing at all. And then you have all the other service industries, people opening their own businesses and things like that. I just don't see it changing anytime soon. People visit this area and they fall in love with it. So, yeah, I think that that's always going to happen. And then when you look at the projections that the cities are doing in terms of population, Tacoma, especially Seattle, where they're heading, I mean, Seattle's, when we moved there, Seattle was just right under, I think, 600,000, close to 600,000. Now it's like 725. So the city has just exploded. And so these are all estimates, but the city has exploded. Here, it's a little bit more of a controlled growth, but Seattle has grown tremendously fast. And it's going to eventually push to be 1 million people in the city. So, and we're talking a small city. Seattle is not a big, you know, Houston or Phoenix, okay. San Antonio, those are cities that spread out. Seattle is very tight. And so putting 1 million people there is just insane. Putting 500,000 people in Tacoma, I couldn't even imagine. I mean, like doubling the population here, couldn't even imagine that. So yeah, I mean, for us, eventually 10, 15 years will be good. Sell this house, sit on that, take a few trips, and then just veg out. Anyhow, just wanted to do a video kind of explaining that. People have asked, will we stay here forever? The answer is no. But for the foreseeable future, probably. If things change and happen and we can kind of go the direction of what we've told folks on Patreon, then sure, hey, I'll do that any day of the week. But more than likely, it's going to end up where we just kind of retire and then just move to some small town here in Washington State. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.